This is your Tuesday Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand. We have a lot to talk about today, as we often do this time of year. I'll be joined by Mike Dimond in just a little bit. He is an executive with Fox Sports North, soon to be Bally Sports North. We'll talk about that transition, the rebrand, and also streaming wars, future of sports wagering with TV, things of that nature, and a lot of other good subjects. Good chatting with Mike Dimond. I've talked to him a number of times over the years, and he was very good to talk to in this case in particular. Also talked to Randy Johnson in just a little bit. Randy covers hockey for the Star Tribune. He was out in Colorado for the regional where the Gophers lost to Minnesota State, Mankato. He'll give us a little bit more of a recap of that and spin things forward to the Frozen Four coming up in a little over a week, where 3 out of the 4 teams are from Minnesota. Also, shout out my wife and oldest daughter. It's their birthday today. They share a birthday. So happy birthday, Julie. Happy birthday, Annabelle. I love both of you guys, and it's going to be a great, great day. But first, what did I miss? Well, here we go, guys. Did you watch the Baylor UConn women's basketball game last night? If you didn't, that's too bad. Shame on you, because there was a lot that went on in that game. Kind of had a little bit of everything, right? Had a big comeback by UConn, which is the favored team. UConn's typically the favored team. Paige Beckers, the Hopkins star freshman, scores 28 points, helps them come back from a double-digit deficit in the second half. Had some controversy. Baylor down 1 point in the closing seconds, gets a shot to win at the end. Looks like maybe it's a foul. A lot of people, these situations, everybody's going to think it's half of the people are going to think it's a foul. Half of the people are going to think it's not a foul. Definitely the team that, like Baylor, thinks it's going to be a foul. They go up, replay shows there's contact. Looks like you could call a foul. Other people say, no, that's just good defense. You can't call that on the last play. Baylor's coach, is post-game wants a foul call. Gino Ariema, UConn's coach, says, no, you can say it was a foul if you want to. I'm just not going to make me sad, but that's just kind of the way officiating goes. Bang, bang play. You could have called a foul. They don't. UConn goes ahead and wins by 2 and advances to another Final Four. Unfortunately, that was not where the game ended. After the game, I referenced Baylor coach Kim Mulkey already. After the game, she had some things to say about the game, of course, during her post-game. Wanted the foul called, talked through the game and stuff like that. But then she kind of unprompted, for some reason, basically started talking about COVID and how now that there are 4 teams left in women's college basketball and men's college basketball, and one of those teams is the Baylor men's team that has advanced to the Final Four. She basically said, let's stop COVID testing in this tournament, because, boy, wouldn't it be too bad if one of these teams had to go home and miss the rest of the tournament because of COVID. If you think I am joking, I am not. Here is the clip of what Kim Mulkey said.
I don't think my words will matter, but after the games today and tomorrow, there's 4 teams left, I think, on the men's side and the women's side. They need to dump the COVID testing. Wouldn't it be a shame to keep COVID testing, and then you got kids that end up having test positive or something, and they don't get to play in the Final Four? So you need to just forget the COVID test and let the 4 teams that are playing in each Final Four go battle it out.
You know what? Yeah, it would be disappointing, right, if you got this far and then you had to exit the tournament because you had a positive test or a close contact, things of that nature. Sure, that would be disappointing. You know what, though? That's the right thing to do. I don't know, what is she talking about? This is like just dangerous. This is just science denial, and it really bothers me, because in contrast to that, you have Karl Anthony Towns playing a basketball game also very same night in Brooklyn. Wolves lose by 5 to the Nets. Close game, probably closer than we thought it would be. After the game, during the game, his father was there. His father, Carl Sr., was there, and typically, in that situation, his mom would have been there as well. You know what? And everybody knows, or probably has heard at this point, the extremely sad story. Carl lost his mom to COVID early on in the COVID pandemic early last year. So, he's talking about how emotional it was to play in that game, how, usually in a situation like that, his mom would be there, that it was great to see his dad, but he was kind of looking around for his mom and then remembering, of course, she's not going to be here. So, you've got, on one hand, the disappointment of missing a basketball game. You've got the other hand a pandemic that has killed more than 500,000 Americans and millions worldwide. Kim Mulkey, come on. Think it through next time. I know you're upset post-game. I know you have strong feelings about this, but you know what? This has nothing to do with feelings. This has to do with science. This has to do with doing the right thing. Really quick, should mention too, now that I'm off my soapbox, Jamison Battle, former George Washington standout, former De La Salle standout, was in the transfer portal. He is coming to the Gophers. That is Ben Johnson's first recruit. Seemed like a good bet that could be his first one, right? You know, Ben Johnson, very similar to Jamison Battle. He transferred after playing a couple years at a different school, Northwestern. In Ben Johnson's case, Ben Johnson played at De La Salle, has all sorts of relationships in this state, particularly at De La Salle. So the new Gophers coach gets a player very much like him to come back and play for the Gophers, someone who played somewhere else, played at De La Salle in high school, and now is coming to the Gophers. He also fits great. Jamison Battle can shoot the ball like 35% from three last season, averaged like 17 points a game, 5 rebounds a game. He is the kind of player that will help them immediately. So good get for Ben Johnson, probably the first of many this offseason that will come his way, and we'll see how that plays out on the court next fall.
I'm Nyla Jean Myers, Senior Assistant Sports Editor at the Star Tribune. Thank you for listening to Strip Sports Daily Delivery. This work is made possible by our Star Tribune subscribers. For unlimited access to the articles mentioned in this podcast and our coverage of Minnesota sports from pros to preps, go to startribune.com/subscribe.
Happy to be joined today on Daily Delivery by Mike Dimond, longtime Fox Sports North executive, soon to be Bally Sports North executive. He's not changing jobs. It's just a rebrand, everybody. Wednesday, FSN makes the transition to BSN, I guess we could call it. Mike, welcome to Daily Delivery. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Michael. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Let me just start off maybe big picture as we think about the changeover. What does it mean to the viewer as you kind of think about it, or the consumer of, someone who watches this channel has watched it a long time? What can they expect that's maybe different? What stays the same? Things of that nature.
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's important to note that, some things are going to change, and you're going to see some things that, certainly when you do a rebrand, it's going to look different. But let's start from the very basic. It's the same place, the same channel it was before, same announcers, all the great people who have brought sports to Minnesota for all of these years, these decades, are still going to be in place. So the announcers aren't changing. Many of all those things are not changing. They're still going to get the same quality production that they will. So when you turn your TV on for the next event, it's going to come on the same channel as it was before. You don't have to go looking for it, but it's going to look different. It's going to look and feel differently. It's going to have a different brand on it. And so for decades, we were Fox Sports North, and now we're going to be Bally Sports North, and people will see that brand played out with new graphics, new music, and really a new feel to it as well.
I see as part of it, there's a Bally Sports Extra. There's been the Plus channel for a while, and now there's an Extra. I see you've got some triple headers. Is that the Extra channel? Is that an over-the-air channel? Let me clarify that first of all for people who have wondered about that.
Well, it's mostly a branding play right now, okay. Right? So we've got some challenges that COVID has presented to us. Like we've all had our challenges across so many different areas. One of those is with the delayed start in the NBA and NHL season. We're having a longer season
the
for both of those. Where all three teams are playing at the same time. So we have an inordinate amount of conflict dates. So we have 5 dates in particular where all three teams are playing at the same time. And as you mentioned, we do have what will be Bally Sports North, Bally Sports North Plus. And then we needed a third distribution outlet for that third game. And so there's a Sinclair owned and operated station in the market, CW23, CW of the Twin Cities, that operates here. And we've partnered with them to clear those 5 Timberwolves games over the air at the same time that the Twins and Wild are playing too. So that it will still have the Bally's look and feel to that, but it'll be on the CW. But that's what we've just termed as Bally Sports Extra on the CW.
Would you imagine using that in other years, or is that more of a function of this kind of pinch point of the scheduling?
I think it's more that, Michael. I think it's a real pinch point to where we've we haven't had this sort of issue before. It's only really because of the way the seasons are compressed all into one.
I had a reader ask, Max Levy wants to know, will there be an impact on programming at all? I mean, when you think of the Fox Sports North brand, you've got some Fox Sports programming around it. Does the kind of programming around all the local stuff stay the same, or will some of that change as well, as far as you know?
Well, I think it's going to be some of both, right? So a lot of that will really stay the same. It'll be rebranded. But I think that the exciting part is, I think over time, we're gonna venture into some new programming. I think one of the things one of the challenges we want to meet going forward is, how do we program other day parts? So the pregame and the postgame that we've traditionally done, all still going to be there and in place, but how do we program the other day parts going forward, and really leverage what we have with all the RSNs across the country and all the other Sinclair assets that we have between Tennis Channel, Ring of Honor, Stadium, all those other, how do we bring all those things to bear so that we can improve the day parts?
Now, the readers Charlie and Matt had a question about gambling, carriage fees. It's just an interesting place that we're at right now, and and how things get sorted out. Obviously, Bally's and Sinclair has talked about this in some of their investor calls, even, and just being interested in how do we see the future of sports on TV, whether it's in-game gambling, things like that. We're not there yet. I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, things like that. But, sports betting is legal in Iowa. It's potentially going to be legal here at some point. Where do you, as you've probably been in some of these discussions, how do you think about the future of how we watch and consume sports on TV, especially as it transitions to this Bally Sports Network?
That's a very popular question, not only with fans and viewers, but with teams and even with employees, about where our business goes. It's obvious that our business is going through a transition right now. I think exacerbated by COVID. I think you could say that about every business that we've had to make adaptations. It's forced us into a position where maybe accelerating things faster than we would have, probably done on our own. And I'm speaking specifically to technology, because technology, as you can evidence by the way people communicate now with Zoom meetings and team meetings and so forth, that's the way we're communicating. But technology has allowed us to move forward with regard to TV as well. Particularly with sports betting, because it's certainly a common question and a legitimate question and we've made no bones about it that is in our future. That's part of the plan going forward, but it's going to be on a case by case basis. And you mentioned it's not in Minnesota yet; it is in Iowa, and until it becomes legal, sports betting becomes legal in the state, certainly there's nothing we can do with regard to sports betting. What you will see over time, though, Michael, is what we call gamification. So it's really, but the goal here is to really create a lean forward experience. So when you think of your traditional, where you sit back and you watch a game, maybe a baseball game for 3 hours, that's still going to be available. The traditional way to watch a game, if you want to kick back and have an adult beverage and watch your game, you'll still be able to do that.
I do. Thanks.
Okay, good. Maybe I look forward to the time when maybe we can do that again together someday. That would be awesome. But we're also going to create another experience, because there's a younger audience out there, if you will, or a different audience that we want to be able to reach as well. And we think that comes with regard to gamification or a lean forward experience, if you will. So one of the statistics is that 85% of people who are consuming content, be that a live sporting event, be it a pre-recorded, be it a Netflix or a Hulu or whatever the deal is, 85% of those people are engaged in a second screen experience. So that may or may not be directly related to what they're watching, but they're either on social media, they're playing a game, or they're doing some other activity. We want to capture that activity in that second screen experience in a gamification mode, that we want this lean forward experience where they're hyper engaged into the game that they're watching and being able to get statistics, batting averages, many of those kind of things that are around the game. And then also be able to participate in some way, shape, or form of of gamification within that prize winning, so forth. Not sports betting. You're not saying what the odds are. You're not doing those things, but kind of involved in what do you think is going to happen, predictive gaming, those kind of things. We're seeing a proliferation of that, in many of the leagues as well.
A bunch of people ask me about this, and I've written about this extensively. I wonder if you can give any thoughts or updates on streaming. I'm sure that's probably the number one thing you get asked about too, the streaming services. It's not something you directly control, obviously, but with FSN and now Bally Sports North not being carried over a number of different streaming networks and Dish still, does this have any impact on that, or what can you tell me about where that's at and where you see that piece headed?
Certainly not surprised by the question, right? Because I had to ask
because I get asked about it all the time too.
Yeah, right. Because that and the sports betting question are probably the two most prominent questions that we get. And look, what I'd say about it is we're as frustrated as the fans are and the teams are. This is not a choice that we made to withhold programming from anyone. It's a business decision that has been made by these carriers not to carry. But I think when you look at really what's happened, they've said no to the RSNs at the same time that Hulu and YouTube have raised their prices, right? So in the end, unfortunately, the consumer is the one that loses out because they're paying more and getting less. And so I don't have insight into the negotiations. I can't tell you where that's handled on a corporate level. But really, the practicalities of it is that fans aren't getting what they want to get and not being delivered that way. And so they've made a business decision, for their business, what they feel is right for their business. And fans need to make the decision themselves of what's right for their viewership. It is available on other platforms. Certainly, AT&T is the streaming option right now. And then you have your traditional cable and satellite. And I know that sometimes that doesn't resonate well with fans, but the fact of the matter, that's where it is. And in the conversations and what we've represented to these entities is no different than what other major operators have agreed to. The Comcast, the DirecTVs, the Charters of the world, it's all in line with that. It's not in any way unfair.
Is it a concern to you that fewer people, particularly younger viewers who might skew, like you said, towards those products, don't have access to your product or aren't having access to FSN? It's an old habit, Bally Sports North now.
Yeah, if that's the last time we hear reference to FSN, I'll be shocked because I think myself, I'll do it as well. Concerning that the way that they had access before was taken away. Yes, for sure but there still is access to it. And it means a different choice.
Let's pull this back into the rebrand for a couple final questions. When people turn on their TVs, like you said, on Wednesday, it's not going to be this brand new thing, but there are going to be subtle touches. What do you, when people say watch the Twins opener on Thursday, what do you, experiential wise, what do you think are going to be the things that they notice the most, that they say, hey, I like this, or wow, that's different, or this I still like it, but this is different and it's not the way it was before?
Well, that's the important thing, right? It's not going to be the way it was. So change is always just jarring in itself. I think that the biggest thing that you're going to see is what it looks like on the air, right? And what it sounds like. So for decades, we've used the same graphics package and the same music. I can tell you, I've been around this company for a long time, and I am really looking forward to new music. It was good music, but it's kind of run its course, right? So I think you'll see, just don't be thrown when you turn on the television or you're watching it on the app, that it's not going to say Fox Sports North or FSN. It will be Bally Sports, and the colors will change. Fox was a blue and white, and this is a red and white network, if you will. So it's going to look different, but the graphics are all high end, all new. The presentation of the games is going to be as good or better than it ever was when we were Fox.
And it does need a new app. Let me clarify that too. For people who have used the Fox Sports Go app, you're going to need a Bally Sports app, correct?
Well, you won't need. There's very little that the end user who are currently subscribed to the Fox Sports Go app are going to need. So the way I understand it, and I'll be as excited as anybody on the 31st when I do it, right? When the app does get released, that it's going to be as simple as an app update. that you would do just like normally with any of your other updates. It will go through the normal updates, and then it will appear as Bally. There shouldn't be anything from an acquisition state that the viewers will have to do. What you probably will have to do is re-authenticate. Remember that Fox Sports Go is an authenticated app that you have to be a subscriber in order to access it. You will probably have to re-authenticate under the Bally app.
Makes sense, Mike. Hey, I really appreciate your time answering all these questions and giving the viewers, listeners, in my case, a chance to kind of understand what's coming up and what they can look forward to. So thanks so much, and good luck with everything that's coming up. All right.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Good stuff from Mike Dimond. I appreciated him answering all those questions. So a couple of them weren't necessarily easy questions. You guys offered some good ones as well when I put that out to you on Twitter. So appreciate that. I don't think anybody's happy with the way this is going right now with the streaming and not being able to access these channels on YouTube, TV, Hulu, Sling, Dish. It's really cut into their audience. And Chip Scoggins wrote about it a couple weeks ago, where there's basically a quarter of their audience is gone right now, and that's a lot. That's a lot of viewers for Twins potentially coming up, Wild, Timberwolves that aren't able to access these games. So we'll see what the resolution is. It doesn't feel like much is going to shake loose at this moment. I thought his answer to the gambling question was interesting too. If you remember, early at the beginning of this month, I had Jason Gerwin from The Streamable on, and he talked about how he could see a future where gambling really does support a lot of the price of this channel. When sports betting becomes more widespread and legal in more states, you could see that happening. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting future. I'm interested to see what this channel looks like when it makes its debut on Wednesday.
Joined right now by Randy Johnson, who is out in Colorado, covered the regional there, where Gophers and Mankato played in the region final. Mankato prevailing 4-0, becoming one of the 3 teams from Minnesota to advance to the Frozen Four. Randy, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Been a fun, busy weekend up here in Loveland.
Yeah, I bet it was. You're going to fly home and get ready to do it all over again, because you're going to go to the Frozen Four as well and cover St. Cloud State, Minnesota State, and University of Minnesota Duluth. Let's certainly talk a little bit off the top about what you saw in that Gophers game against the Mavericks, where, Gophers were the top seed, but boy, Minnesota State sure looked like rallying against Quinnipiac in that opening round game, kind of getting that first NCAA tournament win, breaking that dam really sure seemed like it kind of propelled them a little bit. And they sure played not free so much, but they sure seemed like they were able to play the way they wanted to play in that Sunday game.
Yeah, they certainly did. Minnesota State, it's a team that they like to get a lead, and then they like to be kind of like a boa constrictor and just choke the life out of the opponent, just to really shut them down with their forecheck. They had 23 block shots, and their goalie Dryden McKay, who's very good in his own right, he only had to make 22 saves. So they really frustrated the Gophers from the start. The Gophers didn't get a shot on goal until more than 7 minutes had elapsed, and by the middle of the game, they only had 6 shots on goal. So Mankato played its game to a T.
As we kind of tie a bow around the Gophers season before we spin ahead a little bit to Frozen Four stuff, it comes up short of a goal, I'm sure, of getting to the Frozen Four, a step forward, obviously, and getting back to the tournament, convincing win over Omaha in the opener, where you're thinking, okay, are these guys, do they have a run in them? As you evaluate how this season went, how do you sum it up overall? And as they think about next steps, what do they need to take the next step, I guess, in a year from now?
If you got to give the season a grade, a B+ right around there. Very good regular season. Very good showing in the Big Ten tournament by coming back in a couple games and then knocking off Wisconsin in the championship game. They looked like they were ready to make a run. And they played very well against Nebraska Omaha. Basically controlled that game from start to finish. They were a little susceptible at times when they didn't get leads this year. It happened a couple times against Wisconsin at home, a couple times against Notre Dame. That's one area where you'd like to see them get a little bit better when they get down. They did it in the Big Ten tournament, came back. The consistency with that would be something that you would like to see, and I imagine that comes with age.
Is that a resiliency factor then? Is that something you have to learn as a program? Does that come with success? How do you think you acquire that element to your team? Is it more skill where you feel like you can come back?
I think it's probably, I think they have plenty of skill. I think it might be getting more gritty players in there. And Bob Motzko, that's one of his goals. He's always said he wants to get this team older. You know, they're usually playing against teams that are older. And basically, if you want to compete now, you're going to have guys who play a couple years in juniors. You just can't get the bulk of your team right out of high school anymore.
So you get 5 Minnesota teams get to the final 8, 3 Minnesota teams get to the Frozen Four. How do we, looking at the matchups, a lot of momentum, I guess, all around whenever you get this far. But Minnesota Duluth, knocking off North Dakota, a 5 overtime game, and now getting a good chance to rest up from that. And then obviously Minnesota State, on a nice roll here too, and getting to the Frozen Four. St. Cloud State, you could say the same thing. They go out to that regional, knock off both those Boston schools. How do you evaluate? If you're looking at just the 3 Minnesota teams, how do you evaluate where they're at and who you like, perhaps, as the early look at which one of them might be able to claim that national title? Okay,
I'll start with the Minnesota Duluth, Massachusetts semi. That's gonna be the night one on April 8th. If I bet you somebody would have told you, okay, you got one game to beat UMass, and you get to play for your 3rd consecutive national championship. Minnesota Duluth would take that in a second. They beat UMass 3-0 in the final in 2019, the last time there was an NCAA tournament for their 2nd straight title. This isn't quite the same team from last year for the Bulldogs. No Scott Perovich, no Hunter Shepard, but the system that Scott Sandlin runs, people buy into that up there. They're just getting contributions from everybody. Saturday night, it was the freshman, Luke Mylock, scoring the winning goal. Basically, he hadn't played much all game. Scott Sandlin put him in there, and some other rested guys as the game wore on, got into the 4th, 5th overtime. That's a team. It's like you got to put a stake through its heart to beat it during NCAA tournament time, it seems.
Yep. And then St. Cloud State, obviously, they had a really, really good showing. I mean, the resiliency they showed in both of those games to pull those out, they got to feel pretty good about where they're at too. Yeah, they got down early in both. They then end up running away with both games, beating BU and BC by a combined 10-3. They did suffer a pretty tough loss there with leading scorer Easton Brodzinski. Pretty tough-looking leg injury. There are reports it's a broken leg. That'll be tough overcoming the loss of him, but there's a lot of talent on that team. They're getting very good goaltending from David Renack. They're going to be a tough out. They'll be going up against Minnesota State, which you get them in a game where they get a lead, they're going to be pretty tough to beat. They really rallied from a week and a half ago when they lost to Northern Michigan in the WCHA tournament semifinals in Mankato. That game, Dryden McKay was pulled after giving up 4 goals. They ended up losing 5-1. And they basically used that as fuel this week. They had a big chip on their shoulder. McKay was basically saying that, he heard the criticism, and they were out to silence the doubters. Good stuff. Good coverage from that. Follow Randy, StarTribune.com, Puck Drop. He'll be out at the Frozen Four in about 10 days as well. So read his coverage out there too. Randy Johnson, thanks for joining me here on Daily Delivery. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it.
Let's end with the cooler. Wild loses in overtime, actually shootout to the Sharks late. I actually stayed up watching it. Was doing some other stuff, including editing a little bit of this podcast, some of those interviews that I did yesterday that you heard. This is a little bit of a problem right now. I think they're going through a little bit of a lull. They've gotten away with it to a certain degree because they're 4-2-1 in their last 7 games, which is not bad. That's fine, right? You can keep playing at that pace and make the playoffs, but they have been outshot in each of those games, including last night's game against San Jose. I think the final shot total was 39-25, San Jose over Minnesota. And, it shows up in the loss, right? Cam Talbot has to make a little bit more, has to do a little bit more work than he probably should. And they end up losing they get a point, but they end up losing in a shootout. So 7 games in a row that they have been outshot, 4 of them by double-digit margins. And, some of it's just the way they play. But before that, they were doing, they were outshooting their opponents. They'd had 3 games in a row before that, and 4 out of their last 5 out of their last 6, actually, where they had outshot their opponents. So something with their game is a little off right now, and they're going to need to fix that going forward. We'll talk about that and more on Wednesday's podcast with Sarah McClellan, who covers the Wild for the Star Tribune and is out in San Jose. The rematch of that 2-game set is Wednesday night. We'll do Twins talk on Thursday and a bunch of treats on Friday as well. Thanks for listening today to Daily Delivery. We'll catch you again on Wednesday.